Hello, I'm Bill Donnelly from Sapphire Technology, and today I want to introduce you to a whole new range of graphics cards from Sapphire. The Sapphire Nitro series has been developed specially for gamers, and there's a whole range of cards which suit different levels of gaming. The Sapphire Nitro series will include the Sapphire Nitro R7 370, the Sapphire Nitro R9 380, and the Sapphire Nitro R9 390. So the whole Sapphire Nitro family benefits from our award-winning cooling solutions, and we've put a whole load of our high-end components in there, which I'll discuss in a bit more detail. The Sapphire Nitro series benefits from an evolution of our award-winning Dual-X and Tri-X cooling technologies. When we did a survey, what gamers told us they wanted most was cards to run cool, but also to be reliable. And what we've done with the Sapphire Nitro series is we've incorporated some of the Sapphire exclusive components from our high-end models into the whole range. So these models all feature Sapphire Black Diamond chokes for more reliable VRMs and also solid capacitors for high reliability. So let's take a closer look at the Sapphire Nitro R9 390. At the top of the range, this card features an evolution of our Tri-X cooler, complete with multiple heat pipes and the industry-leading 10mm heat pipe right down the centre. This card's really aimed at the enthusiast gamer, so we've got a new port layout to support multiple monitors. Let's take a closer look. In addition to a DVI port, we've got 3 display ports and an HDMI port, which means you can support multiple monitors if you want to run an Infinity setup, for example. Of course, all of this family is based on the latest graphics core Next architecture from AMD. This card's equipped with 8 GB of the latest DDR5 memory, and it's clocked at a new higher speed of 6 GHz. This one has 2560 stream processors, and the core clocks are running at 1010 MHz, delivering great performance for the latest games. So that's the top end model. Let's take a look at one of the others. This card is the Sapphire Nitro 380. And as you can see, it's got an evolution of our Dual-X cooler with much larger 10cm fans, and each of those has dual ball bearing races for increased reliability. Another thing that gamers told us in our survey was that they wanted the cards to be more rigid. Normally, you'd increase rigidity of a card by adding a backplate, but of course that also adds extra cost. So what we've done is we've redesigned the shroud so that it actually fixes directly to the PCB and provides added rigidity that way. With 1792 stream processors running at just under a GHz and 4 GB of RAM, which is twice the spec of the previous generation, this card gives great performance for high detail 1080p gaming or even at 1440 and above. And again, we give users a choice of monitor configurations. This time we've got 2 DVI ports, 1 display port and HDMI. So now let's take a look at the Sapphire Nitro R7 370. Like its bigger brother, this one also has an evolution of our Dual-X cooling technology, and it has the special shroud designed to fix to the PCB for added rigidity. The Sapphire Nitro R7 370 has 1024 stream processors, but like its bigger brother, it's got a full 4 GB of DDR5 RAM, so giving best performance in its class. And the port configuration is pretty much the same as before, with 2 DVIs, 1 HDMI and DisplayPort for those upgrading to a later generation of monitors. I mentioned that they're all based on the latest graphics core Next architecture from AMD, so they're all ready for DirectX 12 and the latest operating systems. The higher models also support new features like AMD FreeSync and even Liquid VR. My name is Bill Donnelly, thank you for watching.
Hello guys, I am Pixel, and today on the Sapphire Tech YouTube channel we are going to be taking a look at Precio running on the 8GB version of the Sapphire Nitro Plus RX 580. In the top right hand corner of your screen you will also see the frame rate counter, which due to recording with action is around 5 to 10 frames per second lower than what we would see when not recording. The in-game settings are all maxed out to very high where possible, including SMAA-TX2 anti-aliasing, and the game is also running at a 1080p resolution. Now, of course, I could wax lyrical about the performance from both the GPU and Precio for the next 10 minutes, but instead I will let the numbers do the talking. While recording, I notice an average FPS of around 100, and when not recording that will jump up by about 10 or so to an average of 110. Obviously this does fluctuate depending on what you are rendering at that moment in time, but personally I never noticed any dips that impacted my experience. Quickly before we jump into the game, I also want to mention the 1440p gameplay. I am very happy to say that I was actually able to play for around 2 hours at 1440p and I never noticed myself dip below the 60 FPS mark at the same settings, which is great news for all you guys out there rocking a 1440p monitor. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's talk a little bit about Prey. Now, to keep this as simple as possible, in Prey you play as Morgan Yu. The year is 2032 and you find yourself trapped aboard Talos 1, a space station that has been taken over by an alien race known as the Tytan. You need to get to the bottom of what has happened since you've lost your memory, all while attempting to escape the space station and prevent the Tytan from reaching Earth. Now, if that description seems somewhat vague, that's because it is, and it's because of the way that Prey sets up the narrative. While the main story and the objectives are fairly linear, the side objectives in the space station itself are most certainly not. It is the actual exploration and the actual discovery of side objectives that will provide you with the best clues of what's actually happening in the world of Prey. Now, to go on to the gameplay, I have to admit when I first started playing Prey, I was not all that impressed. While the opening sections were pretty cool, I soon found myself feeling bored and frustrated. The world did have me captivated, but the combat and the pacing felt well off the mark. I was running from A to B with my trusty wrench doing the main objective and whacking every enemy I could find, only then to be swarmed out of nowhere and instantly killed. Again, and again, and again. The problem was that while Prey gives off the vibe of games like Dishonored, Bioshock and Half-Life, it's not really designed to be played like any of those games. Combat, for instance, is deliberately underwhelming, with most of the weapons feeling very weak, even when fully upgraded. Now, don't get me wrong, weapons will get the job done for the most part, just not very efficiently or in a way that is entirely satisfying. Once I started to understand some of these things, the whole game seemed to open up to me and I really started to enjoy myself. Due to the heavy reliance on resources, Prey becomes something of a thinking man's game. For example, sure, you could kill the enemy right in front of you right now with half the bullets that you currently have available for your pistol, or you could simply lead them towards an environmental hazard and kill them with a single round. Sure, both ways get the job done, but the latter is much less expensive in the long run. Now, talking about the enemies, for the most part you'll be fighting hostile aliens known as the Tytan. These come in many shapes and sizes. Mimics, for instance, are small head crab-like creatures that can transform into random objects and attack you from nowhere. These force you to pay attention to your surroundings and keep you on the edge of your seat. One of the other common enemy types is the Phantom, which kind of end up being the main enemy cannon fodder for the majority of the game. While they are not crazy strong, they can take a beating, so fighting them will quickly drain your ammo and med packs if you are not careful. Thankfully, almost everything that can affect gameplay can also be crafted. This includes health packs, ammo, weapons, weapon upgrade kits, and even neuromods. With resources being so limited, it makes sense to scrimp and save at every opportunity. Otherwise, you'll soon find yourself spending so much on both ammo and health that you simply cannot afford to upgrade your weapons or your character. That's not to say you can't do a full run and gun playthrough, because you most certainly can, especially on the easier difficulty levels. It's just, in my opinion, the game is best played on the hardest difficulty that you can muster while playing as smart as possible. On the topic of upgrades, you are looking at a system which is pretty much like Deus Ex combined with Bioshock. Neuromods work pretty much like augments in Deus Ex. You consume neuromods in order to work your way up different levels of certain abilities, with the Typhon based mods certainly feeling pretty similar to the Bioshock plasmids. Installing too many Typhon based mods will also make you more alien than human, meaning that automated defenses will start seeing you as a hostile threat, so make sure you keep that in mind. On top of neuromods, you can also upgrade your weapons and even install chips into your scanner and spacesuit that either add functionality or apply status effects. These for the most part are kinda like the clothing options seen in Bioshock Infinite. Apart from taking a little long to acquire and the frustration of feeling like you need to spend neuromods on things like inventory space or better recycling yields, I think the system works great and does enough to change the way that you play, enough to stay interesting. Talking about changing the way that you play, one of the weapons that you get very early on is the glue cannon. While it's not really a weapon per se, it is one hell of a utility item. The glue cannon fires balls of rapidly hardening glue that can be used to slow down enemies, allowing you to follow up with some heavy damage while they are incapacitated. However, it's much more than just a weapon to slow enemies down. The glue can also be used to put out fire, block environmental hazards, and be used to traverse the world. For the most part, it works great, albeit a little bit clunky to use at times, but definitely a weapon that you're going to want to keep at the ready. Now, before going on to my conclusion on Prey, I want to quickly touch on the game's presentation. For the most part, Prey absolutely nails it. Visually, the game looks solid, and while it does not do anything particularly special, it does manage to maintain a very coherent and consistent aesthetic that really helps build up that immersion. The looking glass effect that you will find fairly frequently through your playthrough is also awesome. I don't know what it is, I just can't get enough of these Portal style effects in video games. I just love them, I think they look absolutely amazing. And while these are not portals, they are definitely a throwback to the original Prey all them years ago. Also, one quick tip, keep your eye on what's going on when you're looking through the looking glass, because quite often you can find little hidden clues and maybe a few passcodes that you can't actually find in the world that you are actually in now, so it's always worth keeping an eye out. In fact, the only area where I feel that Prey lacks visually is with the anti-aliasing. No matter which option I choose, I always manage to be able to find jaggies, and especially when moving. It's not a deal breaker by any means whatsoever, but it is worth mentioning because hopefully this is something that we could see improved in a future update. Most importantly, I suppose, is that the visual to performance ratio is so damn good, especially for a CryEngine game, and that is really impressive and absolutely excellent going from Arcane Studios. The sound, on the other hand, is a little bit more of a mixed bag. The voice acting is great and so are all the individual sounds, however the audio is let down by some very disappointing mixing. Often multiple voice lines would overlap, making it almost impossible to hear either. The volume levels are also all over the place due to so many of the actions you make as a player having an effect on them. Unfortunately, where the audio lets down the game the most is in its timing. Often jump scares would fall flat due to the sound happening several seconds before anything else. It could also be very annoying to die to something that you cannot hear, and I do hope that this kind of stuff is fixed in future, but you never know, do you? Overall, the presentation is excellent, but it could have been even better with just a few more tweaks. So finally, let's get on to my conclusion. Prey is a great game, and to the people that like more survival horror type gameplay and the freedom to tackle problems in their own way, maybe Prey is one of the best games out there. The game's art style also hits the mark, and the Art Deco space station looks absolutely beautiful, so overall my impressions are very positive. However, Prey is not flawless. I found the crafting system to be fairly slow and clunky for no good reason other than to slow the player down. And it can be a little bit too easy to avoid certain enemies, and that really impacts the feeling of tension in areas. Luckily, the problems are fairly minor in comparisons to what the game does right, so yeah, I would happily recommend this game to most people. Anyway guys, once again, thank you very much for watching the video. If you've got any questions, please do leave them in the comment section below. If you have enjoyed the video, please do remember to smack the like and the subscribe button so you can actually see some more awesome videos from the guys over at Sapphire. I have been Pixel, thanks again, and until next time, I'll catch you later. Bye bye.